afternoon to you and yours. First from the Fox News deck, just released 911 calls capture a mix of chaos and calm professionalism as a gunman opened fire at Sandy Hook Elementary School and murdered children and teachers one by one. Fox News will not be airing the most gut-wrenching moments from those calls, and we'll get to more of that. They depict the horrors of that day nearly a year ago when police say Adam Lanza shot his way into the school at Newtown, Connecticut. Adults who heard the gunshots called 911 as the shooter went through classrooms and offices, targeting people apparently at random. 26 people died, most of them first graders, 6- and 7-year-olds. The 911 calls have been the center of a huge legal fight. Victims' families argued that their release would add to their pain of their loss. But journalists with the Associated Press argued that the calls are an important part of the public record, and the courts agreed. We'll have much more on that debate and our editorial decisions on the matter for that, frankly, with Judge Andrew Napolitano in just a moment. But first, even with these releases of the calls, journalists in newsrooms across the country have been debating what, if anything, to put on the air. We and our managers have listened to all the recordings that came in that day. And out of respect for the victims, we will be very sensitive with what we do put on Fox News Channel and across all of our platforms throughout the day and in the days to come. Our senior correspondent, Rick Leventhal, is on Fox Top Story. He's live in our newsroom in New York City. Rick, what have we learned today?
We've learned a lot, Shepard, and we certainly learned that these tapes are very difficult to hear, and as you said, we're not going to air most of them. We've chosen a couple of short clips that reflect the horrors of the event and the professionalism of the dispatchers. The release calls were made to Newtown police from inside the school during the shootings last December 14th. Numerous other calls to Connecticut State Police are not being released, including one from a wounded teacher and one from a parent locked inside a room in the school. The first call that you'll hear is filled with fear, and we are not airing this call in its entirety. Here's a clip.
Newtown 911, what's the location of the emergency?
Sandy Hook School. I think there's somebody shooting in here at Sandy Hook School.
Okay, what makes you think that?
Because somebody's got a gun. I saw a glimpse of somebody. They're running down the hallway.
The longest call was from custodian Rich Thorne, who was on the line for more than 10 minutes, and we're not playing the portion of that call where gunfire was heard. This is the beginning of the call.
I believe they're shooting at the front glass. Something's going on.
All right, I want you to stay on the line with me. Where are you in the school?
I'm down the corridor.
All right, I want you to take cover. Jen, get the sergeant. All right, get everybody you can going down there. All right, let me get some information from you. What makes you think that?
The front glass was all shot out. It kept going on.
Okay.
I'm on the line with a 911 call with you.
It's still happening.
Among those objecting to these recordings being made public is Newtown Councilwoman Pat Lodra. She posted a blog reading in part, "The release of the tapes will create a new layer of pain for many in the Newtown community. Hearing those calls takes us back to a day of horror and tragedy. My plea is for the media to treat us kindly, to recognize that there is great personal pain in this event and little public good to be garnered through the general release." It's a tough year for everyone in Newtown and a tough couple of weeks, Shepard. You know, last week they released the police reports. Now we have these 911 calls coming out, and next Saturday, a week from Saturday, is the one-year anniversary of the shootings.
Rick Leventhal in our newsroom, thanks. And as I mentioned, some of the victims' family members fought the release of these calls. They argue that nobody needs to hear the sounds of that horrible day. Still, a judge ruled that the calls are an important part of the public record and said that keeping them secret only serves to fuel speculation about and undermine confidence in our law enforcement officials. Joining us now is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Depending upon the state, this could have happened instantly without anybody being able to complain. Florida is one of those states.
Correct.
In this case, though, there was an argument to be made and a judge to make a decision.
In Florida, it is automatically released whether someone asks for it or not. It's there. It's in a box. Go take it. Go listen to it. Go play it.
Everything. I worked there for years, and that's how it works.
Correct. We both know that, and many of your viewers know that from the cases we've covered in Florida. In Connecticut has a Freedom of Information Act statute, not unlike the federal statute. The presumption is everything is available. Mm-hmm. The law is everything is available. It is the government's burden to state a reason why it should not be made available. I would have had a hard time if I were the judge in that case.
Yeah.
My duty is to uphold the law. But what these people are going through now is almost as painful as the hell they went through a year ago. The default position is The public has the right to know how the government responds to a tragedy, even if it means reliving the tragedy. And under the law, the judge made the right call.
We make these decisions as journalists and managers all the time, and we've been doing it for decades.
Right.
I remember the difficulty of that after the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building blew up in Oklahoma City. We had to make editorial and judgment decisions then. The difference is then when we made those decisions, if we made a decision to withhold, the vast majority of people would never hear them. Today, it doesn't matter what we do. They're all over the internet. Anybody who wants to hear all of them can hear all of them.
Right, and anybody that doesn't want to hear them
Can avoid them.
can avoid them and knows how to do it. It's not easy to avoid them because they'll be all over the place in a few minutes, but you certainly have the option to do it. Fox has the duty of operating in good taste. The government has the obligation to comply with the law, whether it's in good taste or not.
It's harder when you're dealing with something that involves children. It always is. It's harder when you're dealing with something that so affected not just a community, Newtown, but a nation, and dare I say the whole world. When something of this magnitude goes down, it weighs on you.
It's interesting you mentioned children, Shep, because one of the arguments made in this case to keep the tapes from being released is that court is supposed to protect children. Now, it's difficult to say this, but it's true. The children are dead. If some of them had survived, the ones who had been shot, it would have been an easier case to keep this from being revealed. But because they're dead and their memories, there's nobody to protect.
Well, another part of all of this and the decision-making process for us and others, and I'm guessing the court as well, is what you read in the Florida statute about sunshine being the greatest disinfectant. The argument can be made, and in many cases I would concur, though I wouldn't comment on this matter, that the more information that is true and accurate that you release, the less chance that people will question matters about which they don't have information. The more you tell them,
Right.
the better off people are. That's one argument.
Well, look, there were horrible rumors that spread through Connecticut just a month ago.
That persist.
Right. The cops were afraid. The cops didn't know what they were doing. Guess what? The cops were heroic. And now there is an absolute record of how heroic and appropriate and timely the cops were. That gets rid of those rumors. It stops false lawsuits, and it stops further pain in that respect.
Judge, I know this was difficult for that judge. You said it would have been for you.
It'd be very difficult because you not only have to follow the law, you got to do the right thing for the humans involved. You're not just a computer.
Yep, it was difficult for our managers too.
Yes.
You make judgment calls every day in this business.
Yes.
And that was our judgment call. And those are the only two clips we'll play.
Right.
And they'll play across all of our platforms.
Yeah.
Judge, thank you.
Pleasure, Shep.